This is Ryan and Michelle, and welcome to the Celebrate MarriageCast 5-Minute Friday.
Happy Friday. We're so glad you're joining us today, and we have our special guest back for today's show and weekend assignment. We have professional counselor Tony Bohr of Sioux Empire Christian Counseling, and we are springboarding off of our full episode where we dove into addictions, and we have a very helpful assignment for you and your spouse for the weekend. So welcome back, Tony.
All right. Great to be back. Happy Friday, everybody.
Yeah. And this topic sounds serious, but I think the assignment will be fruitful for people.
Yeah.
So what do you have for us?
If you didn't listen to the episode, obviously go back and listen to it.
That was really good.
And we talked about addictions, and addictions are bigger than just alcohol or drugs. We talked about any kind of thing, cell phones, pornography, hunting, fishing, working, shopping, food. All those things can be addictions. So what I wanted you guys to do, and here's your homework assignment, is there's kind of three things. First is talk with your spouse about what do you think, what's one thing that you have to be careful of or aware of that could lead to addiction. We kind of talked about it's okay to take a break or disconnect or do some of those things, but what is one area, one thing, one topic that you're like, man, I got to be careful, and this is what I need to pay attention to. Talk to your spouse about that. It's a really healthy, good thing to do on the front end, right? I'd rather you have this, that. So that would be the first question. Second question is, after you guys talked about what those things are, can you give your spouse permission to check in and ask how you're doing on those things? So if it's me and I'm on my cell phone and scrolling, instead of my wife going, are you on your phone? Are you on your phone? Are you on your phone? It's like, hey, Tony, how you doing with managing your phone? What are you shooting for? How's that going? Is giving your spouse a little permission to check in with each other. There's that accountability piece. Sure. So can you talk with that and get your spouse, get some permission to do that? And then the last thing is, and this is always kind of that safety net to feel good, is can you get an agreement with your spouse is if things get a little hairy or bad, are you willing to go to counseling? Can you go and talk about it? Because an addiction is a lot easier to fix when it's a month old as opposed to a year old. And so if I'm talking now and I'm not addicted to my cell phone and my wife's like, hey, Tony, that's your thing. I'm going to keep checking on you. And I'm like, yeah, you can check in with everyone. And it's going, and I'm not listening to her and I'm just scrolling. And at some point she's like, Tony, will you go to counseling and talk about how we're doing? If she goes, we go talk about your cell phone use, I'll probably like, no, I'm fine. It's good. I can quit.
Sure.
Right. But if we've made this agreement, it's like, hey, anytime you want to go to counseling, I'm going.
Yeah.
Even if I don't think it's a big deal, even if I don't think it's a problem, I'm going to make that deal with you. And for her to make that deal with me so that then we have this ground where it's like, you know what, if anything starts to get a little off, we'll go in and talk about it before it gets too big. And so that's your homework, is talk about what do you think you could be addicted to? Is your spouse allowed to check in and ask you how you're doing on that? And then if anything ever gets bad, whether it's an addiction or anything else, can you make that promise to your spouses? I will always go in and keep working on our marriage.
That's great. Tony, on our show on Tuesday, you had a line that I thought was gold for clarifying, because we really expanded for people this whole umbrella of what could be potential addictions or those problem areas. Like you said, do you want to give that line? Do you remember the line?
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is what is an addiction? Anything that controls you, that you don't control it. And that kind of widens it open. We were talking with my wife about this because I was like, hey, what's this? I'm trying to practice what I preach, right? And she's like, what is yours? And one of mine is you know what? If there is a crumble cookie, a Oh My Cupcakes,
sure,
or a Flyboy donut, I'm eating it.
Oh my gosh, Tony, we will not tell you where our daughter just got reemployed at for the summer.
Just bringing home donuts and stuff. But there's this piece of like, what's the answer is, hey, that's something, unfortunately, that controls me.
Sure.
Right? There's other stuff when we were talking about food and stuff. She's like, hey, how about chips and salsa? I'm like, yeah, no, I like it, but I can actually sit there and not have it if I'm really focused and not doing it. the sugar one, I can't.
Yeah.
And so it's just learning how to manage that. And that's a fun little silly one, but it's just a way to kind of look at it and talk about it. It's like, what's controlling you?
Yeah.
So I would never get a job at any of those places.
Right.
They're all awesome and great, but
Yeah.
it would be, I wouldn't say no.
And for your wife to know that too. Oh, sorry, for your wife to know that so she doesn't bring home like a dozen Oh My Cupcakes and be like, Tony, look what I got for you. And you're like,
I'm eating them all.
you're like, dang it, take those away.
Exactly.
Or you gonna say, love?
No, I was just going to say that same thing, Michelle, of like, it is important to know, like, if there is something that's a trigger that your spouse knows of, like, you know, if it's alcohol or whatever, like that they're not constantly putting it in front of you, you know, that's a really important thing to know.
Probably for your friend group too, in a way. So they're not like, hey, bring out the, cupcakes or drinks or, just like knowing that you're working on that.
Yeah.
So,
So
that's
so
great.
go home, communicate about that, talk. Addictions don't have to always be terrible, bad, and scary, right? They're just stuff like, hey, what do you need to be aware of that? Is it going to control you or are you controlling it? Talk about that with your spouse.
So talk about potential trouble areas or addictions. Talk about if you can have permission to speak into your spouse about that area, and then talk about getting permission to seek out counseling if things start to increase in those areas.
Yeah.
So
Perfect.
Yeah.
Tony, thank you so much for being here for
Absolutely.
this assignment for the weekend. And thank you to our listener for joining us. We want you to know that if you don't have a church home, we'd love to be your community. You can find our location and our online services at celebrate.church. Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.